We begin tonight with cinematographer Ric Waite. In addition to Cobra, Mr. Waite's credits include landmark films like 48 Hours, Footloose, and Red Dawn. Did the Cobra project come about for you in the usual way? Or?
Well, yes and no. I mean, the director, it was a strange dude. His name is George Cosmatos. We called him George Comatose. Because for the most part, he really was. George would have made a great producer. He's a terrible director. He knows nothing. Has no technical knowledge whatsoever at all. He could never understand why we had to get focus marks. I mean, he truly did not understand that, the concept. Sly was a pretty good guy to work with, pretty good sense of humor. But the problem we had with Sly was he was engaged at that time to Brigida, whatever her name was, and she was in the movie, of course, and they were always playing grab ass and kissy facey and poo poo and all that kind of stuff. And we were losing. And also he had this entourage of, he called them security people. They were just a bunch of muscle men, really, what they were, and they were paid to basically listen to Sly talk. That was the bottom line, which Sly did a lot of. And one day we were shooting, and he comes roaring up to me. He says, "Rick, we're really falling behind. You got to push your crew a little harder." Now I'm noted. I've always been noted in the industry as being one of the fastest cameramen in the industry. I mean, I am fast. I know I am. I mean, I don't sit around for 20 minutes looking at it. By the time the director says it's yours and I've seen the rehearsal, I know exactly how to light it. So and I'm off and running. So I don't. Anyway, I said, Sly, if you stop playing grab ass with Brigida, and stop bullshitting with your henchmen, we get off to a much better start here in the morning. And he looked at me like, no one talks to me that way, I thought, well, okay. What? I had two more. Actually, I had two more office movies in the bag. Anyway, so if he fired me, I didn't care. He didn't fire me. He said, okay, and he behaved for about 3 weeks, and then we went back to business as usual, and no one else ever complained again. But other than that, he's a pretty good guy and a good sense of humor. And the only other thing that blew me away was at the end of the big shootout sequence at the end, the third act.
Right. And
we shot it out at Lake Piru. And it was written as a night sequence with all these motorcycles coming up and everybody shooting each other, blah, blah. So we went out there of an evening, and I don't know what time of the year it was. It must have been, November maybe or March, I don't know. But it was pretty cold at night, I got to say. I'm a cold California can get. Anyway, and we're out there in our shirt sleeves. Well, I knew better. I always carry a sweater and a jacket in my car. So I actually had two, so I loaned Sly one of my jackets. We walked around, figured everything out. He says, it's just one thing, he says to George Cosmatos. He says, we're going to shoot this as a day sequence. And we all looked at each other and said, day? There is nothing scary about day. Look at Sly. I mean, you can see him coming from 10 miles away. It defeats the entire purpose. I didn't say this. We're all thinking it. But, it was Sly's picture, so we shot it by day.
The whole shootout at the end of it, it was originally conceived for night? Is that what you're saying?
The thing with the motorcycle sequence, not the thing in the fire factory where he finally throws the guy up on the hook.
Right, but when he's on the back of the truck and he's shooting down mowing down the bikers. Yeah,
exactly. They were staying in a motel, and he got shot.
Right.
And that sequence should have been a nice sequence, but it wasn't.
Do you enjoy shooting action?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We always laugh because what's the alternative? Is bedroom, bath, and parlor. And it's boring. I mean, like Footloose was, with the exception of a couple of sequences, with dancing sequences, most of the stuff, two people sitting around in the living room talking. And you do, take after take, like a case in point on not summer rental, The Great Outdoors with. I mean, we did, 4 and 5 page scenes with 4 and 5 actors. My God, you do the coverage because it's all day long. You do a 4-page scene. It's boring. With action, I mean, you're just moving out there. You got 3 or 4 cameras to set up, and action. I love action. I love action pictures by far more than anything.
You mentioned Cosmatos, who you guys refer to as Comatose, which it's just priceless to me. So in terms of mapping out the shots and the visual scheme of the film, did you feel like you were basically on your own in doing that, or?
Pretty much. I mean,
yeah.
George would come in every day with comments from the previous day's dailies, and we all knew it was Sly's handwriting. I mean, it wasn't George. Now here's what I looked at dailies last night, and these are my comments. These are my comments, quote unquote. Everyone knew it was Sly's comments. It was Sly's handwriting. I mean, that's happened a number of times where I've jokingly said I could probably claim directing credit for at least 20 movies that directed. They couldn't find a way to the set without a roadmap. Never mind block out a scene. But the good directors never a problem. Like Walter Hill, Herb Ross. I'll tell you that the killer was John Frankenheimer. I mean, he's the most cantankerous. He was the most cantankerous son of a bitch I've ever met in my life. But what a brilliant director! And I love working with him. And he's just got a great eye. But he put his hands out and said, "This is what I want, Rick." He said, and that's exactly what I want. I don't want anything else, nothing more, nothing less. That's exactly what I want. He'd frame it out. Love it.
Tell me about working. I mean, not just with Stallone, but with big actors in general. What is your level of communication with the actor? And I would imagine big stars like a Stallone are very specific about how they want to be lit, how they want to be shot. Is that the case or no?
Well, sometimes yes and no. Like I'm looking at a poster for The Border, Jack Nicholson.
Yeah.
And Jack was really a great guy. I mean, he was just really a super guy to work with. It's a long time ago, of course. But the only quirky thing, he wanted to wear these mirrored sunglasses. And they literally were mirrors. I mean, the side towards the camera. So it was a nightmare. Every time I said, Jack, could you just drop your chin a little bit? Because I can see the whole crew, the trucks and everything else in your glasses. I mean, it was very, very difficult. Other than that, and he was insistent he wouldn't change them. So,
yeah.
But other than that, the guy was terrific. John Candy, I did 5 pictures with John Candy, one of the great gentlemen of all time. Johnny Forsythe, and John became a very dear friend of our family. As did Johnny Forsythe and Dick Crenna, both became really good family friends with my wife and I and our children and their families. As my wife and I are currently with Kurt and Goldie. We go back with Goldie Hawn 40 years. 40 years.
Wow.
The night we met Goldie was the evening of the day she was then dating a guy named Gus Tricona. She finally married him after a while, briefly. But at any rate, the day that she signed a contract to do this brand new NBC show called Laugh-In. And it was that day that she had signed the contract to do that show. So that's how far back we go. And we have stayed over the years. And when we go back with Kurt, every one of those people, they're just, I told my students that they think everybody's running around, the casting couch and shooting up heroin or smoking dope or whatever have you. I guess it's very. Yeah, I've only seen dope and marijuana on my set once. It was a crew member, and I sent him home right on the spot. But
right.
I said I've never. I take that back. I mean, David Carradine on Long Riders smoked a lot of dope, but never out publicly, only in his privately.
Mm-hmm.
He never late for a call, and never blew a line for any reason either. So that I couldn't.
Well, that's what when you tell me the stories about the films you've been involved with, and I look at the remainder of your resume. I mean, you've worked with such incredibly talented but very colorful people, and we talked about Frankenheimer and Walter Hill, and they make very kind of muscular, tough movies for the most part. And then I look at someone like John Milius in Red Dawn, and who is also that kind of filmmaker. He's a colorful character too, isn't he?
A great big bear. John's favorite on that movie anyway, and I love that man dearly, truly I do. Mm-hmm. We had a lot of fun on that movie, he and I together. Literally a lot of fun. One night, we were shooting. We started in September, and we were still shooting in December. It was getting really cold. One night we were shooting, and it was about 25 below zero, I think. Below, I'm talking now, okay? And he had told the UPM, call me when Rick's got he'd given me the setup the night before. He said, call me when Rick's ready for the shot. So I set up the shot, and I've got 2 pair of electric socks. I got moon boots up to my knees. I got the Eddie Bauer bib overall pants. I've got long underwear, of course. I've got a turtleneck, a wool sweater, a wool shirt, and an Eddie Bauer vest, and the Eddie Bauer Expedition parka, and I got mittens up to the front of my. I mean, I was a animated igloo is what I was. Everybody the same thing. Anyway, I set up the shot. Told the first AD, okay, call John, I'm ready. And now sit down, have a cigarette, cup of coffee, and wait till John gets there. Which I knew he was at the time. He had some young thing at the hotel. He was probably banging her or something. I don't know if she was banging him. Anyway, he comes roaring up in his car, pulls up right up next to me in the set. He said, "Okay, Rick, you got wait, not Rick. Okay, wait, you got 5 minutes. That's all you're going to get." I said, "Hey, John, that's 25 fucking below zero here. If you don't want to shoot work tonight, well, there's not a man in this crew that won't happily go back to the hotel and get warm. If you want to call it quits for the night, hey, be my guest. I'll follow you." And he laughed and apologized. He said, "I'm sorry, Rick. I had the greatest blowjob of my life." He was just that kind of guy,
When you give examples, for instance, when you taught, when you gave examples of great cinematography, what are some of those films that come to mind for you?
Well, The Bad, the Beautiful. Unfortunately, I still think black and white is the truest art form there is in terms of motion picture. I think color is disappointing at best. Also, the writing in the 60s, 50s, 60s, and early 70s, I think was just infinitely better than it is today. Now, I have to believe that there's no shortage of good writers. There's just a big shortage of intelligent readers. The studios today are no longer run by filmmakers. They're run by lawyers and accountants. And all they look at is the bottom line. And it's really too bad. But because I've written 2 scripts where my agent had set out, one went to Paramount, one went to Warner Brothers. I got incredible coverage on both scripts. I mean, this is a great script, great dialogue, great characters, great plot, blah, 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 blah. Get a star attached. It's a made movie. Now, wait a minute, get a star attached. If I had Brad Pitt, I could shoot the fucking New York phone book and make a movie out of it. So, I mean, that's the studio's job is to get the stars, not the writer, But nobody will read scripts anymore. I don't think anyone ever reads them. They have people who read them, who write the coverage, and the coverage goes up the food chain and finally gets to somebody on top that has the power to say, okay, let's make this movie.